Forget Money Heist. This isn't fiction. This is real life, and it happened at the Louvre. No script, no cameras, just 4 ghosts, a truck lift, and the most impossible robbery ever pulled in Europe. For minutes, that's all it took to make the world realize the perfect crime didn't need a professor. It just needed Paris. They say the Louvre is untouchable, that beneath its glass pyramid lies a fortress, sealed by centuries of art, history, and impossible security. But at 9:30 a.m., on a calm Sunday morning in Paris, that illusion shattered. And for exactly 4 minutes, time inside the world's most famous museum stopped. Because in those 4 minutes, 8 royal jewels vanished. Right under the eyes of guards, tourists, and history itself. Paris was awake, but not alert. A crisp October morning, the Seine glimmered. The first tour groups shuffled through the pyramid entrance, whispering about the Mona Lisa, about beauty, not about crime. In the Galerie d'Apollon, sunlight poured through golden ceilings painted with gods and empires. Beneath those gods, under glass, sat treasures from queens Marie-Amélie, Hortense, Eugénie, Marie-Louise, their tiaras and necklaces glinting with sapphires, emeralds, and diamonds. They had survived revolutions, wars, and empires collapsing. But not this morning. At 9:25 a.m., on the street facing the river, a white truck rolled quietly to a stop. To any passerby, it looked ordinary, a furniture mover at delivery. But bolted to its back was a hydraulic lift, the kind movers used to haul sofas into top-floor apartments. Except this lift wasn't for furniture. It was for a window on the Louvre's 2nd floor. Inside the truck, 4 men sat in silence. Gloves on, masks tight, tools ready, disc cutters, glass saws, signal jammers. At 9:28 a.m., the lift began to rise. Slowly, mechanically, each creak echoing off the stone walls of the palace. They reached the window, the same one engineers had noted was under renovation. Cameras nearby? None that faced the angle directly. Coincidence? Or planning? The first man cut a perfect circle through the glass. Another attached a suction handle. The pane came off clean. No alarms. No motion sensors. Inside, footsteps. Boots hit marble. The Louvre had been breached from the air. 9:30 a.m. A tourist nearby snapped a photo of the gallery's ceiling. The same instant, a masked man smashed the display case beneath it. The alarm shrieked. But by the time the guards checked the monitors, the figures were already moving with military precision. 2 breaking cases, 1 collecting, 1 timing. Each jewel had been mapped out. The Eugénie tiara, worth millions, gone in seconds. The emerald necklace of Marie-Louise, detached from its mount with surgical calm. Even the reliquary brooch, tiny but priceless, slipped into a padded case. For minutes, that's all it took. They didn't run, they walked. Because panic leaves trails, but discipline leaves none. At 9:34 a.m. they were gone. Out the window, down the lift, and into the fog of morning traffic. Security reached the gallery 60 seconds later. Empty displays, shards of glass, and a single jewel left behind, the crown of Empress Eugénie, found cracked and glinting near the museum gates. Almost as if they had dropped it on purpose. A signature, a taunt. The Louvre went silent. Visitors were evacuated. Doors locked. Sirens filled the air. Paris hadn't seen anything like it since the Mona Lisa theft of 1911. Except this time, it wasn't a painting. It was France's royal history, stolen in daylight. The value? 88 million euros. But the real loss wasn't money. It was identity, centuries of empire, power, and vanity, all symbolized in those stones. By evening, the Louvre's director, Laurence Decars, faced cameras. Her voice trembled slightly as she said, "The jewels are priceless, but our security did not fail." The irony echoed louder than the alarm. That night, Paris police combed through hours of footage. But the angles were wrong. The facade's cameras didn't catch the balcony. Then a clue. On a side street near Pont du Carrousel, a black motorcycle helmet was found in a dumpster. Inside, DNA. Minutes later, Investigators found a pair of gloves behind a trash bin, sweat-soaked, traceable, a trail the thieves probably never meant to leave. The press called them ghosts, but ghosts don't bleed DNA. Whoever they were, they had studied the Louvre's rhythms. They knew which galleries had temporary blind spots. They knew the morning routine, and most chillingly, they knew the museum's alarm response time for minutes. That's not a guess, that's inside knowledge. Some speculated it was an inside job. Others believed it was the work of a professional European art crime syndicate, possibly the same group linked to the Dresden Green Vault robbery in 2019. Same tools, same timing, same silence. But unlike Dresden, where the jewels were cut apart and sold off, the Louvre pieces are nearly impossible to fence. Too famous, too traceable. So where are they? Interpol says only 3 outcomes exist for heists like this: melt and dismantle. The gold and stones are separated, melted, and sold in fragments. The history is erased forever. Private collection. A wealthy underground collector pays millions for what can never again be shown publicly, owning the unattainable as an ego trophy. Negotiation leverage. Thieves keep the jewels intact, hidden, and use them years later to bargain for reduced sentences, cash, or anonymity. If the jewels are ever found, they'll likely be stripped, their beauty traded for anonymity. But in the underworld of stolen art, anonymity is currency. Here's the strangest thing. Every great heist is not about greed. It's about control. A human urge to bend systems we're told are unbreakable. For these thieves, the Louvre wasn't a target, it was a symbol. A fortress that guards not just art, but ego. To break in was to whisper to the world. Even your most sacred places can be touched. That's why they didn't strike at night. They wanted daylight. They wanted witnesses. For minutes. That's how long it took to remind billions watching online. That perfection is just a story we tell ourselves. Within days, international agencies joined the case. Europol, Interpol, and French anti-organized crime units. More than 100 investigators now work around the clock. They've identified a few persons of interest, but no arrests have been made. And as of now, the jewels remain lost. The Louvre reopened 3 days later. The glass displays still cracked. The lights dimmed slightly, as if the museum itself were grieving. Tourists walk past the empty cases, phones raised, whispering, "This is where they were." No one says, "This is how it happened," because no one really knows. Paris has a way of healing in silence. The Seine keeps flowing. The lights still reflect off its surface. But in the reflection, something feels different. A quiet unease, as if the city itself now doubts its own security, its own myths. The Louvre, the monument to civilization's greatest achievements, was breached by 4 men with a truck lift. And that's the real story. Not just that jewels were stolen, but that the line between genius and audacity, between art and crime, blurred. Maybe, in their own twisted way, they created art too. Not on canvas, not in marble, but in motion, for minutes of perfect choreography. And in those minutes, the world watched history get rewritten. Somewhere, right now, those jewels might still be glinting in the dark. In a vault, a suitcase, or someone's private room. But the real treasure isn't what they took. It's what they left behind. A question that still haunts us. How safe is beauty when humans crave power more than preservation? This was the 4-minute robbery. How thieves outsmarted the Louvre. And if history has taught us anything, what disappears always returns. Just not in the same form. You think this was perfect? The next heist wasn't about jewels, it was about power. Watch before it mysteriously disappears again. And subscribe.